Hi guys. I am back with Stardust. We're almost done. I'm gonna read chapter 9. Obviously, like I've said before, the disclaimer is that this Stardust by Neil Gaiman, this storybook is a fairy tale for adults. This book is for adults, and they have a movie, and I like the movie better than the book. But it's because they're different. They're both very different. They have obviously similarities, like when they make movies of books before, but I prefer still the movie. Anyway, so we're gonna be reading chapter 9, part. I don't know if it's gonna be in two different parts, so I'll obviously mention it at the end. I don't think so. I think it's gonna be one full one, but we'll see. Okay, let's get started. I'll just show you real quick the picture up here. Okay, chapter 9 is called Which Deals She Fly Within the Events of Diggory's Dyke. At Diggory's Dyke. Okay, Diggory's Dyke was deep and cut between two chalk downs, high green hills, where a thin layer of green grass and reddish earth covered the chalk, and there was a scarcely soil enough for trees. The dike looked from a distance like a white chalk gash on a green velvet board. Local legend had it that the cut was dug in a day and a night by one Diggory, using a spade that had once been a sword blade before Wayland Smith had melted it down and beaten it out on his journey into Fairy from home. There were those who said that the sword had once been Flambert, and others that it was once the sword of Balmung, but there were none who claimed to know just who Diggory had been, and it might all have been stuff and nonsense anyway. The path to wall went through Diggory's Dyke, and any foot traveler or any person going by any manner of wheeled vehicle went through the dike, where the chalk rose on either side of you like thick white walls, and the downs rose up above them like a green pillow of a giant's bed. In the middle of the dike, beside the path, was what appeared at first glance to be little more than a heaped pile of sticks and twigs. A closer inspection would have revealed it to be something in nature partway between a small shed and a large wooden teepee, with a hole in the roof through which gray smoke occasionally could be seen or trickled out. The man in black had been giving the pile of sticks and close an inspection as he could for 2 days now. For the top of the downs far above the hut he had established was inhabited by a woman in advanced years. She had no companions and no obvious occupation apart from the stopping each and every lone traveler and each conveyance that passed through the dike, and passing the time of day. She seemed harmless enough, but Septimus had not become the only surviving male member of his immediate family by trusting appearances, and this old woman had. He was certain of it, slit Primus' throat. The application of revenge demanded a life for a life, did not specify any way that the life should be taken. Now, by temperament, Septimus was one of nature's poisoners. Blades and blows and booby traps were well enough in their way, but a vial of clear liquid, any trace of taste or odor, had gone when it was administered with food. That was Septimus' meteor. Unfortunately, the old woman seemed to take no food. She did not gather or trap herself, and while he contemplated leaving a stream pie at the door to her house, made of ripe apples and lethal baneberries, he dismissed it as soon enough as impractical. He pondered rolling a chalk boulder down from the hills above her, dropping it onto the little house, but he could not be certain that he would hit her with it. He wished he was more of a magician. He had some of locating ability that ran patchy in his family line, a few minor magics he had learned or stolen over the years. Nothing that would be of use to him now when he needed to invoke floods or hurricanes or lightning strikes. So Septimus observed his victim to be as a cat watches a mouse hole, hour after hour, by night and by day. It was past the mid-hour of the night and was quite moonless and dark when Septimus finally crept to the door of the house of sticks, with a fire pot in one hand and a book of romantic poetry and the blackbird's nest, into which he had placed several fir cones. In the other, hanging from his belt, was a club of oak wood, its head studded with brass nails. He listened at the door and could hear nothing but a rhythmic breathing, and once in a while a sleeping grunt. His eyes were used to the darkness, and the house stood against in white chalk and of the dike. He crept around to the side of the house, where he would keep the door in sight. First, he tore the pages from the book poems and crumpled each poem into a ball or a paper twist, which he pushed into the sticks of the chalk wall. At ground level, on top of the poems, he placed the fir cones. Next, he opened the fire pot with his knife. He finished a handful of wax linen scraps from the lid, dipped into the glowing charcoal of the pot, and when they were burning well, he placed them on the paper twist and the cones, and he blew gently and flickering yellow flames until the pile caught. He dropped dry twigs from the bird's nest onto the little fire, which crackled in the night and began to blossom and grow. The dry sticks of the wall smoked gently, forcing Septimus to suppress a cough, and then they caught fire, and Septimus smiled. Septimus returned to the door of the hut, hefting his wood club on high, for he had reasoned, either the hag will burn with their house, in which case my task is done, or she will smell the smoke and wake, affrighted and distracted, and she will run from the house, whereupon I shall beat her head with my club, staving it in before she came utter a word, and she will be dead, and I will be revenged. It is fine plan, said his dead brother Tertius. In the crackling of the dry wood, all once he has killed her, he can go to obtain the power of Stormhold. We shall see, said Primus, and his voice was the wail of a distant night bird. Flames licked at a little wooden house and grew and blossomed on its sides with a bright yellow-orange flame. No one came to place was an inferno, and Septimus was forced to take several steps backwards from the intensity of the heat. He smiled wildly, triumphantly, and he lowered his club. There came a sharp pain on the heel of his foot. He twisted and saw a small, bright-eyed snake glisten in the fire's glow, and its fangs sunk deep into the back of his leather boot. He flung his club at it, but the little creature pulled back from his heel. He looked in great speed with behind of the white chalk boulders. The pain in his heel began to subside. If there was poison in its bite, thought Septimus, the leather should have taken much of it. But I shall bind my leg at the calf, and then I shall remove my boot and make a cross-shaped incision in the place where I was bitten, and I shall suck the serpent's venom. So thinking, he sat down upon the chalk boulder in the fire's light. He tugged at his boot. It would not come off. His foot felt numb, and then realized that the foot must be swelling fast. Then I shall cut off my boot, he thought. He raised his foot to the level of his thigh. For a moment he thought his world was going dark, and then he saw the flames which had illuminated the dike like a bonfire were gone. He felt chilled to the bone. So said a voice from behind him, soft as a silken straggling rope, sweet as a poison lozenge. You thought that you would warm yourself at the burning of my little cottage. Did you wait at the door to beat out the flames, should they prove not to be liking? Septimus would have answered her, but his jaw muscle were clenched, his teeth gritted hard together. His heart was pounding inside his chest like a small drum, not in its usual steady march, but in the wild rhythmic abandon. He would feel very vein and artery in his blood-threatening fire through his frame. If it was not ice, then they pumped. He could not tell. And the old woman stepped into his voice. She looked like the woman who had inhabited the wooden vault, but older, so much older. Septimus tried to blink to clear his tearing eyes, but he had forgotten to blink. His eyes would not close. You should be ashamed of yourself, said the woman, attempting arson and violence upon the person of a poor old lady living upon her own, who would be entirely at the mercy of every passing vagabond, but it would not for the kindness of her little friends. As she picked something up from the chalky ground and placed it around her wrist, then she walked back into the hut, miraculously unburned or restored. Septimus did not know which and did not care. His heart juddered and syncopated inside his chest, and if he would have screamed, he would. It was dawn before the pain ended, and in 6 voices his older brothers welcomed Septimus to their ranks. Septimus looked down one last time on the twisted, still arm from he had once inhabited, and at the expression of his eyes, then he turned away. There are no brothers left to take revenge on her, he said, in the voice of the morning curlews, and it is none of us will ever be Lord of Stormhold. Let's move on. And after he had said that, there were not even ghosts in that place. The sun was high in the sky that day when Madame Samuel's caravan came lumbering through the chalk cut of Diggory's Dyke. Madame Samuel noticed two suit blackened wooden hovel beside the road, and she approached closer and bent an old woman in her faded scarlet dress, who waved at her from beside the path. The woman's hair was white as snow. Her skin was wrinkled, and one eye was blind. "Good day, sister. What happened to your house?" asked Madame Samuel. "The young people today, one of them thought it would be a good sport to fire the house of a poor old woman who has never harmed a soul. Well, he learned his lesson soon enough." "Aye," said Madame Samuel, "they always learn and are never grateful to us for the lesson. There's truth for you," said the woman in a faded scarlet dress. "Now tell me, dear, who rides with you this day?" "That," said Madame Samuel, "oddly, is none of your. Never mind. And I shall thank you to keep yourself to yourself. Who rides with you? Tell me truly, or I shall set harpies to tear your limb from limb and hang your remains from the hook deep beneath the world. And who would you be to threaten me so?" The old woman stared at Madame Samuel with one good eye and one milky eye. I know you dishwater style. None of your damned lip. Who travels with you?" Madame Samuel felt the words being torn from her mouth, whether she would say them or not. "There are two mules who pull my caravan. Myself, I'm a maid servant I keep in a form of a large bird, and a young man in form of dormouse. Anyone else? Anything else?" "No one and nothing. I swear it upon this sisterhood." The woman at the side of the road pursed her lips. Then get away with you, and get along with you," she said. Madame Samuel clucked and shook their reins, and the mules began to amble on. In her borrowed bed in the dark interior of the caravan, the stars slept on, unaware how close she had come to her doom, nor by how slim a margin she had escaped in. When they were out of sight in the stick house and the deathly whiteness of Diggory Dyke, the exotic bird flapped up onto the perch, threw back in its head, and whooped, growled, and sang until Madame Samuel told it that she would wring its foolish neck if it would not be quiet. And even then, in the quiet darkness inside the caravan, the pretty bird chuckled and twittered and thrilled, and once it even hooted like a little owl. Okay, guys, I'm gonna leave it here. So part 2 is gonna be really short as well. But thank you guys for watching. Please hit the bell for notification. Hit the little bell, right? Hit the bell for notification. Share, comment, and follow me on Instagram. And I will talk to you in my next video. Bye, guys.